I was watching the NFL shows this weekend, and obviously this John Gruden thing has been
There
kind
was
of ugly.
another. They found another email something he sent to Goodell too.
Yeah, I mean, he was just slamming on Goodell, called him a couple of names. It wasn't anything
Okay.
racist. But obviously the thing that he was talking about Maurice Smith. And by the way, speaking of Aldo Greco, he will join us on Thursday.
Talk about that.
We haven't talked about the NFL, and he knows Smith. He's not personal friends with him. He knows Gruden. So we'll come on, and we'll talk about, as a player, what would this mean if you knew your coach had said something derogatory about your ethnicity or your culture or anything else. So we'll talk about that.
That's a great question.
So we'll talk about that on Thursday. But I was watching Randy Moss, and I remember the Randy Moss, dope smoking Randy Moss, could not catch his words, and now he's a pretty good analyst. He does a pretty good job. He's kind of grown into it. Now it's been 10 or 15 years.
I like that.
But he was very eloquent in how he talked about the whole John Gruden situation. Didn't like it.
Did you see John's presser when he was apologizing?
Yeah.
That is
Tony Dungy had a little bit of a different take last night that I thought was a little interesting. Tony's obviously a black man.
Yeah.
So listen, he wasn't in the National Football League when he said it. He wasn't employed by the Raiders when he said it, so there's really nothing they can do to him. He made a mistake. He said, I've worked with John extensively for a long period of time. Mike Tirico worked with him for 7 years, and both of them collaborated and said, neither one of us ever heard him say, even remotely come close to saying anything that would be considered racist when we worked with him. And so we know him as a good guy and a hard worker. And Tony said, it happened 11 years ago. He apologized, let it go, and let's move on. And I was kind of like, wow, I was surprised. Now, Tony Dungy's a good Christian guy. And maybe that's just his character. But I was really surprised, whereas a lot of other African-American players were like, oh, hell no. No, I don't care how long ago it was. You're not going to say those things. And we'll tell you exactly what he said, because it's been difficult, kind of hard to find a little bit later on the show. But, that's – and I even said, should he be fired for it? I don't think – he's not going to get fired. And, again, he was not employed. Now, if he was in the National Football League at the time, he was an analyst for ESPN when it happened. But I'm not jiving with his excuse of why he said it too.
Yeah, it was. It was a stretch.
Yeah.
It was a stretch.
Last Friday, a leaked email sent by Raiders head coach John Gruden was revealed in the report by the Wall Street Journal. In it, he said NFLPA President Maurice Smith had lips the size of Michelin tires, which obviously considered by many to be a racist trope about black people. He went on to explain that I've always said that whenever people are lying, they have rubber lips.
Right, which
and I took it too far. And I've never heard liars called rubber lips before.
Yeah.
And I was like,
they're
that's either brilliant.
Blabbering, like blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I know.
That's either really.
I'm with you that
It's
way.
almost like, can you make that up that quick? Or did someone say, okay, how are we going to get this? I got an idea. Say you used to say that people have rubber lips if they were liars. And he's like, that's brilliant. And so I'm almost like, is John that dumb that we believe that? Or is it true? So I want to hear someone collaborate that they have heard John Gruden say rubber lips sometime in his life.
Yes, other than, yes.
If he's like, he always called liars rubber lippers.
Okay, fine.
Okay. Then I could, but I haven't heard anybody else say, used to hear John say that all the time. So he said, and then I took it too far, saying that because the Michelin Man is rubber and it's tires, that it's rubber. And I'm like, really?
Dude,
and I'm like, do you think we're that stupid, or is that brilliant? And it sucks because I like John Gruden a lot. I think he's a kind of a caricature guy.
Story we've always talked about. Now again, let's give him. But this is the one I would have never thought. Right? This is the one I would have never thought. He's a great guy. And here's the other thing which I thought was interesting. I'll ask Al about this. You hear this all the time. I don't have a racist bone in my body.
Yeah.
Don't have a racist bone in my body. So, and we've talked about this. You don't think you have a racist bone in your body, and you may not feel that you're a racist. But you still may say things and do things that are seen as racist. Right? This is the same things that you didn't realize. You didn't realize they were derogatory, but they are.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of those correction moments. Oh my God, yeah, no, I can't. Okay, I didn't realize what I was saying is as bad as it was. And then in that way, okay, fine. You don't have a racist bone in your body, but you need to be educated. You need to be informed.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Again,
Well, but the thing is, I'm sorry, I'm flipping. It's an email. Like it's too. Here's the other thing. We talked about this, and the more this happens, the more I pay attention to what I text, like to you, to anybody else.
Yeah.
Because I started having this thought, like, what if I said something in a text to you that somehow, when we become, world renowned, it is taken out of context.
Yeah.
And I think about it a lot more carefully because I do think that we say things and we say things that are not appropriate, and you can think them. Maybe you can say them with your friends.
Yeah.
But you sure as hell don't put them in writing. I think that, you don't put them in writing, and you sure as hell don't put them in writing in a forget the Raiders, in a work setting.
I went through this exercise yesterday. So I'm at Lowe's yesterday.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Not Publix?
No. And they had the Christmas stuff out already, right? And I was like, oh, I'm in, man. I'm all in. I was with my boys like this, and we spent like an hour just walking through the Christmas stuff, and I was looking at all their new technology, and if their LED lights came down like $1 a pack or whatever.
You're
so there it is. I go around, and there is a black Santa Claus. Did I send you the picture?
Uh-uh.
It's a black Santa Claus. He's got the gray beard, and he's like 5 feet tall. Lit up.
Please tell me people weren't complaining.
No,
Oh, okay.
no. And I was like, and it was different.
Yes.
I've seen black Santa Clauses before in real life, and I've seen black Santa Clauses lit up before, but I've never seen them in a store.
Right.
Like you'd have to go to some special shop to get a black Santa Claus. And so I'm seeing this picture, and then I'm thinking, okay, here's a black Santa Claus. Not used to seeing a black Santa Claus.
Look at you. You're so...
It's lit up. It's beautiful. And I'm thinking to myself...
Oh, I know what you're saying.
Okay, I got to figure out a way to get this out on social media because I know this is going to push some buttons. I know by putting a picture of a black Santa Claus.
There's no way.
Because there was no white Santa Clauses. That was the weird thing. There was no white ones. There were just black ones. And so I'm thinking...
That's interesting. And there were multiple? And
then I'm thinking to myself, I was going to write, where's the Latino Santa Claus? I said, I can't do that. That's not right. That's not right. So and I'm going to go through and I thought, and inevitably, there was no way for me to post this because people who know me are going to know exactly what I'm doing.
Right.
Of all the things to post, because if I said, Christmas is coming, can't wait.
Then it would be okay.
People are going to go, okay, of all the Christmas things you could have chosen, why did you choose the one thing?
I would have thought that would be okay.
They'd call bullshit on it.
But it's okay, yeah. It is different. Listen, we've heard this. I've heard numerous black actors.
And by the way, I sent the picture to my daughter and to my son. I sent it to my daughter and I said, Christmas is coming. Excited.
Yes.
And she just wrote back, yay. Perfect. Then I sent the same picture to my 16-year-old boy, who's going to turn 17. And I wrote, who knew? Because I didn't know that this was so and I think it's great, this commonplace. And he's like, that's amazing. Yep. I was like, now my son's Latino. Yep. He could have he could take that picture and post something and say, wait, what about the Latino? Where's the Latino Santa Claus?
That's the whole thing. Santa Claus is to everybody what they want it to be.
Well, sure it is.
But
it's real.
I think it's
Unless
great.
You've seen Santa Claus.
No, I think it's great. I do think it's interesting that there weren't only black Santas.
Yeah, I didn't know, and I wasn't.
No.
So, and no one was talking about it. No one was. The place was packed. It was like, but it's the first time I've seen one, and I thought it was cool. And I was like, depending on what your beliefs are, or what your ethnicity is, or your culture, or whatever, I think it's great.
I remember an interview with, and I'm blanking the guy's name, the kid who played on the Cosby Show, who was the oldest son.
Yeah.
And they were talking about this.
Theo.
What?
Theo was his name. Theo. I'm not sure what his real name is, though.
So they were talking about why the Cosby Show was so important. And they said, imagine, and I think this is great for us who are white, imagine turning on the TV every single day.
Yeah.
And not seeing anybody who's white.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine, on the one hand, if you were, you're sort of born, you would accommodate, I guess. It would become somewhat norm. But imagine if everybody you saw on television did not look like you.
You'd be watching BET
Well, yeah,
to an extent.
yes.
Yeah.
But the whole idea is that you'd have to have a special channel.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, I think that is the
And
part.
you do. I mean, BET
Well,
is
no, I know.
a special
But that's
channel,
the thing is I do think it's interesting that we see. I wonder if black individuals see that. Well, yeah, they do. And I just, it's different. If it would have been multiracial, I would have thought that would be even more interesting. And let me say this: given where we live, like that blows my mind that it's not that there was only black. Don't you think that's interesting? There was only black.
I mean, I was looking for the white. Not
Yeah.
to say I wasn't angry there wasn't a white. I really didn't care.
No, I know.
But we're 27% African American in Birmingham,
Right.
which is a lot more than it was when I moved here in 1988.
Yeah.
That's super great. It's
Yeah.
whatever. But that was the first time I'd actually seen one on display, and it was right there in front.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like hidden in the back.
No,
it wasn't like we have to put it. It was, and I was like, and I didn't hear any murmurs or anything. It was great. The one thing about the whole Black Lives Matter stuff, and I know people are tired of talking about it, and it's kind of been under the carpet because of some other things going on. It has exposed a lot of people that I'm not going to say are racist, but are biased. We talked about it on the show. There's a lot of people that think and say things, and I don't believe that they think they're racist.
Exactly.
And I'm not going to say there's not because I think we all have a little racist or bias in our bones.
Absolutely.
And, he had to know, and again, it was 10 years ago, he had to, I would have thought that John Gruden, and he did mention something that you always talk about. He was highly emotional when he wrote the email. We always talk about this, man. Don't let your emotions, you make some of the dumbest mistakes of your life when you do things when you're highly emotional. Write it. Look at it the next day, then send it off.
Or let somebody else
That's where social media kills people because we're emotional, we're into things, and we have to say it. We got to get it out now before someone else gets it, and we want it to go viral, right?
Well,
and if you wait, it's still going to be fresh, and you may go, whoa. And I can't tell you how many times I see a Facebook memory come up, and I'll watch a video and go, wow, I can't believe I said that 3 years ago. Not nasty, but I'm like, that was stupid, or that was weird.
Well, and he said that in his press conference. He said, I don't remember the particulars because it was 10 to 12 years ago.
But, again, and I can't wait to get Aldo Greco on Thursday to talk about it. He's over in Atlanta right now with Sanford Golf. If I'm a black guy, and we heard from a lot of black men this weekend, Desmond Howard had something to say about it. Randy Moss had something to say, almost every black. And I was pleasantly surprised in that Tony Dungy knows Gruden and said, listen, he made a mistake. Wouldn't have said it myself, but he did apologize. Now let it go and let's move on. And I was like, whoa. Because I know a lot of black people probably didn't like the fact that a fellow black man was saying that. But if someone made fun of your physical being something you can't control, that's part of your ethnicity or culture, and all of a sudden, Monday morning, you're having meetings, and there's this guy who just slammed on your, it'd be really difficult to give a rip.
Yes.
Because he's a leader. People look to him for leadership. And
you don't let it go. I think that's an interesting thing. I think let it go, maybe don't fire him. Maybe. But you're right. If I'm in the Raiders organization, I'm a player, I'm not looking at you the same.
They've hammered him, and they came out really, really quick, which tells me they're going to keep him.
But even if you do, so you can hammer him and you do all the public stuff, and we're disgusted, and that was terrible, and it was abhorrent, and blah, 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 blah. Then you walk, it's exactly what you said. Then you walk in the locker room, or you walk in the meeting room, and I look at this person, and I know what they said, and in particularly if it's me, not me personally, but my ethnicity, even if we're going to move on in that moment for today, maybe tomorrow, maybe 3 weeks, maybe forever, I do not look at him the same way.
I want to know about the rubber lips. I do. I think that's a very important part of the story. Some people are like, it doesn't matter what he said. He said that his lips look like the mission. No, I want to hear him say, I used the term rubber lips for liars, because he was part of the NFLPA, and a lot of people don't like Demarius Smith because of that. I want to know if that's true or not, because if we find out that's not true, then we know
That's right.
that there is a racist bone in his body. I'm not saying he should be fired for it, but if he's making an excuse for something, then I want to know, then why are you making the excuse? It would have been a lot easier for him to say, listen, I was highly emotional, made a horrible mistake, I apologize, and just see what happens. But the fact that he's trying to make an excuse, and he said, listen, I've been doing this for 40-something years, blah, 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 blah. Everyone knows me, knows there's not a racist bone in my body, and he said he let it go. So he stuck his heels in a little bit. He dug in.
Well, and so listen, the two pieces that, I mean, again, at this point, we can't, but there's two pieces that you always get worried about. I get concerned about. You don't say, I was emotional and I said it. And if that's your apology.
Yeah.
Because saying that you're emotional and I said something, now you're giving me an excuse. I don't care if you're emotional. You shouldn't have said it.
Yep.
So you apologize for saying it. I'm talking about broader, not just John Gruden.
Yeah.
So, and this is where he's in a sort of a sticky situation. Like you said, if his description for people who lie, black, white, yellow, green, men, women, are rubber lips, then let's see it.
I want to hear him call a white person someone with rubber lips.
That's right.
If there's some documentation of him saying that dude's got rubber lips and he's a white guy, then I'm like, okay,
Right.
All right. I could see where you took it to another level, because you're talking about the Michelin Man who's obviously got accentuated big rubber. Okay. Then that it's still not the best thing in the world to say.
Right. Exactly.
You still can't say it again.
But
you may want to figure out a different way of calling someone a liar.
That's the inadvertent, right? So to me, that's the inadvertent thing. That's like saying to me, well, I guess not. We'll say your nose grows. Now we're picking on Pinocchio.
Are you making fun of me?
What? No, I was picking on Pinocchio. I was going to say
Did
something
you call
about
me Pinocchio?
No, dude, look at my nose.
Your nose, you ain't got a small.
Yes,
your nose is fine.
I've proportionally.
This is a nose,
Tony,
right here, and they continue to grow.
But Tony, you're a larger man than I am, so proportionally my nose is big. But so if there was something about nose and you can smell out money, right? Because his nose is so big. As a Jew, I'm like, I want to hear.
Well, yeah, when you talk about money with Jews too.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm. What I'm saying is you don't have an anti-Semitic bone in your body, okay?
Yeah.
But you said that.
But you're saying you can sniff things out.
Well, okay, so then that gets to the bias piece, or that gets to the ignorance piece. Okay, you maybe don't, but what you said is offensive.
Yeah.
I've heard this. Listen, I have heard this before. As someone who's Jewish, they Jewed you, and and these are people like
they Jewed you.
Jewed you, yeah. They cheaped you out of something.
Yeah.
And I remember the first couple times I heard it, I was like, "Whoa!" Because these are people I knew.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? What? And they're like, "What?" I'm like, you can't say that. Don't say. But the people that I knew, were they anti-Semitic? I don't think so. Did they say something that was just anti-Semitic? Yes.
Yeah.
And that's to me that's the difference. And on top of all of that, and this is the thing that about John Gruden or anybody, don't say stupid shit in an email. Like totally racist, not racist. Don't say anything derogatory.
You always talk about this. You can have a thought. We always have thoughts.
Right.
We all have bad thoughts. I've had racist thoughts.
Yep.
We've all had thoughts of horrible things. But then if you put it in writing, you have to actually sit down and type out what your thought is.
Yes.
And it takes it to an all new level.
Well, because you committed to it.
And then you act on it.
You've
those are
committed.
Yeah. And so if you're writing something out, then you're right.
And hit send.
Right?
Then
so
you've got all
to
these
it.
things.
Yeah.
You thought it.
And this is 2011. This is not 1969. This is 10 years ago, okay? We've been through a lot in this country now over the last 3 years, certainly. But, I mean, this is really recent. And people are like, it was 10 years ago.
It's bad. Listen, it's super bad business.
Yeah.
And and this is the part, people say, let it go. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It does. It does matter. Racist, not racist, any of that stuff. You do not communicate things that are derogatory. unless you're willing to stand by them
Yeah.
and realize that you may have to defend yourself 10 years later.
Yeah.
The press conference, though, I always think is interesting. I've seen this with Nick Saban. I've seen this forever. I've never done a press conference. I would never want to do a press conference when they keep asking the same question.
Yeah. Because they're not getting the answer they want.
That's right. And at some point, they always end up walking off because they're not getting the answer they want. But I always think this is interesting. If you're a reporter, you're a journalist, and maybe we could ask a sports journalist this. Is it your job to just keep asking? Like if 6 people before you have not got the answer.
Well, yeah, because sometimes if you keep asking, they will finally give you a
So you're waiting for them to break.
Because all you got to do is ask them something where they give you a little open door, and then you can kind of,
okay.
What do you mean by that? It's a psychologist. Is what it is. When you keep asking some of the same
No, because see, if you're smart, you just go. Well, I've seen Nick Saban. We've seen Belichick is great.
Yeah.
You just look straight in the eye and say the same thing. It's called the broken record technique.
Exactly.
Works perfectly.
It does.
Okay.